Secretary Jonathan Satter, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Policy Gone By. We really appreciate your time today. I'd like to, first off, just ask, how are you and your family doing? I know it's kind of impacting everybody, at the state level, but how are you all holding up?
I'm doing okay. I'm a little bit working on fumes. I got a couple hours sleep last night. My wife is home in Palm Beach County, watching over her parents and my parents, who are both taking the social distancing to an extreme. So I have not seen her in a couple of weeks. Probably here for a couple more, but it's what we got to do.
Yeah. Well, let's dive right in. You've been handed the responsibility for getting Florida's reemployment system back in fighting shape. What is the first step on kind of that journey? Where do you even begin in kind of moving ahead?
Good question, Sal. So the governor gave me a mandate, and we talked about the mission, and the mission is very clear. And so we've defined that mission to all of the stakeholders that are involved, whether they be folks here at DEO, partners across the state enterprise. We've got thousands of state employees working on this, and private sector partners as well. And that mission is pay Floridians as quickly as possible. So that's the mission. We remind everybody that every day. It's front and center in our war room, which is just a few steps of where I am, where we've got about 20 people at all times working. Our strategy encompasses 4 buckets. The number one is communication. We have been in a period of uncertainty, regardless of whether you're in Florida or any other state, for a period of 6 to 8 weeks with COVID-19. And so the unemployment situation that we have in Florida, which is being shared by other states, creates a double whammy. We've got a lot of uncertainty. So over communicating and being fully transparent is the number one goal. So we're doing that in a couple of different ways. So a couple of the tactics are, we have posted a dashboard at floridajobs.org, which we update every day, and so that people can hold us accountable for progress. Number two, talking to the media on a regular basis. We're talking to thought leadership like you regularly. And number 4, and most important, we're trying to communicate quickly and easily with claimants who are in a state of distress about what status their claim is. Second is workflow. So as you know, state government sometimes is a little bit behind the scenes, behind the times of private enterprise. So I'm asking everybody that works here at the Department of Economic Opportunity, how do we take something that traditionally took you 3 steps? How do we shrink that down to 2? And that's a big lift, because people, there tends to be a regular answer of, well, when I ask, why do you do it that way? Well, that's the way we've always done it. So that's the second bucket. Third bucket is regulatory. And that is, how do we cut red tape and eliminate the bureaucracy? That's both at the state level, which the governor has been fantastic at doing. He's been a tremendous chief executive, cutting that, issuing executive orders, allowing me to modify rule and just cut that red tape. And then also the governor, as most of your watchers and listeners know, has a tremendous relationship with the federal government. And we've gotten the attention of the federal government on issues that impact Floridians with regards to paying of claims. What most people don't realize is that there is a federal contribution for the paying of state claims. So we do rely on the feds. We have to comply with a number of federal requirements when we pay out claims. So the governor's relationship with both the president and the federal government has been integral in trying to fix this problem. And then the fourth is technology. And the analogy that I've used in the past has been, we had a 10-year-old car that was designed and purchased to run at 40 miles an hour, because 10 years ago, we only needed it to drive 40 miles an hour. Now we're asking it to drive 180 miles an hour, do the Daytona 500 multiple times, multiple days in a row with no pit stops. So we're making progress on all 4 of those buckets.
Well, and this kind of segues to my next question. You're the secretary for DMS, the Department of Management Services. This was not in your initial kind of job function, but the governor looked to you and said, you're the right guy for this. As you dive into it, what are you seeing as those strengths and weaknesses, and where are you looking to kind of prioritize a little bit in the weeds to get the system to where it can run the Daytona 500?
Yeah. So I think, having spent my entire career in the private sector, I joined the administration shortly after Governor DeSantis was inaugurated. What I bring to the table is I don't have any preconceived expectations or preconceived assumptions on how things should operate. So I ask a lot of questions, just like we're talking about. So at DMS, one of our 4 pillars is challenging the status quo. Again, if somebody has been doing something because that's the way it's always been done, well, why is that? How can we take that process from 3 steps to 2? So to a certain extent, I spend a lot of my time trying to break things into very small chunks that become manageable. If you look at this whole challenge that we've had, it's overwhelming. But if you break it into little pieces and you put the best people, the best subject matter experts on each piece, then it becomes much more manageable.
So kind of looking at the economy, we went from an economy at 2.8% unemployment, creating anywhere from 15,000 to 25,000 jobs a month, to one in which large sectors of our economy were shut down in a matter of just a few days. So quite a stress to any system. How do you approach this in the short term? And are you all thinking about the long term right now and focusing on that, or really just looking at the short term?
So good question, Logan. So number one, I have not tried to look at the past other than being able to measure where we are going to the future. People always, over the past week in particular, have said, what was the problem? What caused the problem? I don't have enough energy to focus on the negative. I can only focus on where I am now, where I'm going forward. But just to give you some metrics, because metrics are important to me, I'm a big believer. There's a great quote by the father of modern management theory, which is, you can't manage what you can't measure. And so it's important that we measure ourselves every day. But in December of 2019, the agency processed about 23 to 25,000 unemployment claims. Since I've been at the agency, which is about a week, we've had days where we've processed 80,000. The system is just not designed for that sort of throughput. So we've had to step back and find out how do we, these different steps, and again, understanding that the technology has to touch federal partners to verify different pieces of information. How do we accomplish those quicker and easier? How do we open up the pipes to put more throughput? We're making a lot of progress on the technology side. Simultaneously with that, we have a tremendous communications challenge. We've got 1 million people who have applied for benefits. There are more and more people being paid on a regular basis, but there's still a great deal of uncertainty out there. And so communications and crisis communication strategy is something that takes up a significant part of our team, and we have a lot of folks working on that every day.
Yeah. Have you gotten to a place where you're kind of setting benchmarks for success?
Yes. So last weekend, from the technology perspective, we had a series of hardware upgrades. So technology I put into 2 buckets: hardware and applications. I'm a big believer that we shouldn't own our hardware. It's like a depreciating commodity, but we do own the hardware, and we have to deal with that. So we've had to bolster that hardware, which we did last weekend. We had to take our system down for a period of time to do that. We've seen tremendous performance upgrades since that time. For example, yesterday, for most of the day, we had in excess of 100,000 concurrent users on the system. And again, remember, during the month of December 2019, we only had 25,000 applicants. So the system is running at a pace that it has never run before. So we think we have the hardware in the right place. On the application side, it's a very cumbersome 10-year-old system that is, it's like an aircraft carrier, and sometimes turning an aircraft carrier around takes a long time. It's got to go way down and turn around, big radius. So changes in applications are complicated. They take a long time, but we're making a bunch of changes this weekend that we hope will, again, between the combination of the hardware and the applications, will push the throughput that much more.
Well, you've got, Floridians who are navigating, the health system application of this, the educational aspect. You got 2 million kids now learning virtually. You've also got the economic piece of it. What message are you, wanting to convey as you are untangling this and kind of getting the puzzle set right?
So I would actually put that into two buckets. What I'd like to say is we're making progress, be patient, but people have run out of patience. I think the thing, going back to one of the comments earlier, is there's a great deal of uncertainty. People are uncertain about their health, and they're uncertain about their finances. We have put into place, through Governor DeSantis's leadership, a plan to make sure that all Floridians who are eligible for benefits get paid. That is a really important, certain item that people can take comfort in. I know it doesn't help them with the dollar they need today, but they're going to get that money sooner than later. Everybody's going to get paid. It's going to take us a little bit longer than everybody wanted to, but it's going to happen. And we're like a if you look at the life cycle of a baby, we're taking baby steps over the past week. Today and into the weekend, we're going to be taking toddler steps. Early next week, we're going to be that young adult who's really learning how to sprint. And then we're going to move it up, and we're going to catch people up. And once I think people start to get payments, we're going to see the crisis communication decrease. So we have it's sort of the technology is the leading indicator. As technology starts to improve, communications will follow right behind.
Well, and that kind of brings us probably to our last question. For the folks who are out there, they may have pending applications in the system or may be confused with the portal. Is there somewhere that you would direct them to go for additional information or to get questions answered over the course of the next, week or two as they're navigating?
So there's a lot of information. And again, we've tried to be transparent. We want to under-promise and over-deliver. But there's a tremendous amount of information at floridajobs.org. Mm-hmm. There are two items that are there. There is a resource guide, and there's a fairly voluminous frequently asked questions. So unless somebody has a question about a specific claim, everything else is in that FAQ.
Right.
At floridajobs.org.
Well, we'll be sure and kind of post that in this episode. Secretary Jonathan Satter, thank you so much for taking time out of what is got to be a crazy busy schedule. Really appreciate your time today, and we look forward to catching up with you soon.
Nice to see you, Sal and Logan.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.